Welcome back, you guys. Today we are going to be analyzing patterns in math. Analyzing is just a fancy word for looking at and figuring out what's happening in these patterns. So the first pattern we're going to look at is this: 1, 2, 4, 8. And then we have some questions that we need to answer because it says, which of the following is true of the 8th term? The 8th term, again, just another fancy word for saying the 8th number in the pattern. So if we look up back at 1, 2, 4, 8, my first instinct is to think that we're counting by twos. But when I look back, I know that 1 is not a multiple of 2. So now what I think is happening is I think we are doing 1 times 2, which is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. And 4 times 2 is 8. So before I answer any of these questions about the pattern, I need to understand what the pattern is. And now I know that the pattern is that I'm multiplying by 2. Now that I know that, I only have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. And the question is asking about the 8th term, or the 8th number in the pattern. So we have to figure that out first. So first is 1, 2, 4, 8. And then because I know my pattern is multiplying by 2, then I need to do 8 times 2. And 8 times 2 is, 16. Once I get the next number in the pattern, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I need to now multiply this by 2. 16 times 2, some of us can solve that in our heads. Some of you might need to pull out a piece of paper and think about it. In my class, we like to do this. 16 times 2, I break up 16 into 10 and 6. And I know that 10 times 2 is 20, and 6 times 2 is 12. So 16 times 2 must be 32. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so I need a few more, times 2. If I do 32 times 2, I think about doubling this 3, which would be 60. And I double the 2, which would be 4. So the next number is 64. And then I need one more number in my pattern and multiply by 2. So if I say 64 times 2, my class would break that up into 60 and 4. I know that 6 times 2 is 12, so 60 times 2 must be 120. 4 times 2 is 8. And so 64 times 2, if I put these back together, would be 128. Now that you have all of the numbers in your pattern, you figured out the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th term, we can go back and we can answer these questions. So, do you believe that the 8th term of 128 is even? Yeah, we know it is. It ends with an 8, and 8 is an even number, so A would be correct. So can the 8th term be odd? No. So we cross this one out. The 8th term is a 3-digit number. Think about what a 3-digit number means. It means it has 3 digits or 3 numbers. 1, 2, 3. So C must be true. If I look at D, the 8th term has a 2 and the ones place. Well, I know my number does have a 2, but if I look closely, the ones place is where my 8 is. My 2 is in the tens place. So D cannot be true. In my class, we would say tens right here to remind myself that it's actually written in the tens place, which is what makes that answer incorrect. Lastly, it says the 8th term is a multiple of 2. So I'm going to think back to the multiples that I learned a few days ago and think multiples of 2 means if I count or multiply by 2, I can get to that number. Well, if I know that 128 is even, and I know that even numbers are numbers that can be counted by 2s, then I know that 128 must be a multiple of 2. So my answers that are correct are A, C, and E. Now you're going to do another pattern on your own. You can always come back and rewind to this if you need some help, and I will also give you the answer key at the end. Here's the pattern you'll be looking at today. It's 5, 10, 20. Remember, before we ever solve the answers, which this looks like it's about the 5th term, we first need to identify the pattern, And then next, I want you to find the fifth term in the pattern, and then we can go back and answer the questions. So go ahead and pause this video, take a look at what's in front of you. If you need a piece of scratch paper or whatever you need to work with, go ahead and do that to find your answers. And now let's talk answers. So if we're looking at 5, 10, 20 as your pattern, first, remember, we would come back and we would find what the pattern is. If we go from 5 to 10 to 20, I'm pretty sure that this pattern is also multiplying by 2, because I know 5 times 2 is 10 and 10 times 2 is 20. So my pattern is multiplying by 2. So in order to find the fifth term, there's the first, the second, the third. 20 times 2 would be 40, would be the fourth term. And 40 times 2 would be 80, which would be my fifth term. So knowing my fifth term is the number 80, we're going to come back to the top and look at our answers. So if I look at 80, is it even? This one's always really tricky for my class. We forget that 0 is also an even number. So is 80 even? Yes. And the 0 is what makes that true. And you can see here that is true. So then it cannot be odd because it's even. Is it a 3-digit number? If we look at the number 80, it has a digit in the tens place and in the ones place. And so that's only a 2-digit number. That one's also false. The fifth term has an 8 in the ones place. Does it have an 8? Yes. Does it lie in the tens place? Yes. So cannot be in the ones place. The fifth term is a multiple of 2. Well, I know that 80 is an even number, which means that it can be divided by 2, which means that it's also a multiple of 2. If I count by 2s and continue multiplying 2 plus 2 more, I will always get to 80. So yes, that one is true. The fifth term is a factor of 10. Again, we're going to have to go back to our thinking from a few days ago that you did and think about what factors are. Factors to me are almost like little rainbows or skeletons that make up a number. So if I think about 80, I know that 8 times 10 equals 80. So yeah, 10 is a factor of 80 because I can use it to multiply to get to 80. Your teacher is going to be really proud of you for continuing your work at home and making sure you're not missing out on any learning while you're gone from us. We miss you every single day. I know your teacher misses you dearly. If you're in my class, you know that I do. Keep up the learning, and we'll see you soon.